Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to what is sure to be an absolutely electric episode of Canucks Conversation. My name is Dave Guidrelli. That is Harmon Dial. Our technical producer is Grady Sass. And, folks, we've got a big Canucks win, a massive Game 5 win, as the title says. We've got a massive Game 5 win to talk to you about. But before we do that, we need to tell you that today's episode of Canucks Conversation, as always, is brought to you by the 2024 Toyota BZ4X. The BZ4X is Toyota's brand new all-electric SUV designed to go the distance for you and your family. The BZ4X is packed with Toyota's coolest tech, but it still has that trusty SUV feel you know and love. And even though it's electric, it's capable of effortlessly conquering any terrain, whether it's rain, snow, mud, or your friends' questionable post-game recaps. The BZ4X will get you through it all. And of course, we are coming to you from the iconic Wall Center in downtown Vancouver. Looking for your next meeting space? Contact the Wall Center for all your event needs at sales@wallcenter.com. Harmon, where do we start? The poll question today is about who the MVP of this series is for the Canucks. So we're not going to start there. We'll get to that later because I think it's a topical conversation. But the Vancouver Canucks take a 3-2 series lead in the form of a 3-2 victory over the Edmonton Oilers last night. A game that was close on the scoreboard, but where the Canucks dominated basically all game long, it felt like, except for the first period.
Absolutely. The start was a little bit rough where I think they went the first 6 minutes without a shot. But overall, that was their best performance of the entire playoffs, even in the Nashville series, in my opinion. Yep. The way that they, from the second period onward, dominated Edmonton with their forecheck, their speed, their ability to retrieve pucks, how cleanly the Canucks themselves were breaking it out. It felt like it was wave after wave after wave, stacking shift after shift after shift, just wearing the Oilers down. They were unfortunate that it was a tie game that late going into the third period. They deserve better, sort of similar to how in Game 4, when Irf was on the show, I was talking about how, yeah, it's a 1-goal game, but territorially, it wasn't actually as close as it seemed. Like Edmonton was really taking it to the Canucks. It was the opposite in Game 5. This was by far their best performance of the playoffs.
People asking early on if I shaved. I didn't shave, but it looks a little different in this lighting, right?
It does.
It was darker yesterday. Fluctuates.
It almost looks like you took a trimmer to it.
I didn't. I promise I didn't. I promise I didn't
believe
trim
you,
it.
but
I promise I didn't trim it. Come on. Canucks are winning. You think I'd risk that? Are the Canucks winning? New poll question. Are the Canucks winning because I'm growing out the mustache? Tough to say.
It's a perfect correlation. That's science.
Yep. It is science. We don't have the capability to zoom, but I think if you zoomed in, you'd see what you saw yesterday. It's there. We
could zoom in.
No, it's okay.
We just don't.
I don't think.
No, it's okay.
We don't want to lose listeners here.
People asking what the squirrels have to do with the show because in the chat we always have the squirrel emoji from Nar right away. Our chat is bumping early on, folks, and it's going to be bumping all show long. We want the energy. We want the interaction. Anyone else is going to be probably a bit of a gong show, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be our gong show. But Harmon, let's break down last night's win in depth. This segment is brought to you by our friends over at 4 Winds Brewing, more specifically by Velo. That's the beer we're talking about today. If you're looking for an easy drinking beer that's going to quench your thirst after a day on the ice or on the golf course, if you're the Oilers, Velo is for you. This American Pale Ale was brewed with fresh squeezed lemon juice and pink Himalayan salt. Citrusy and refreshing, Velo is like the sports drink of beers. And at only 4.5%, it won't weigh you down either. You can grab yourself a 6-pack of Velo at select liquor stores across BC or for home delivery through the online shop at 4windsbrewing.ca. Is that the one I have behind me? No, it's not. But I got some 4 Winds behind me right now. Locally owned and operated in Delta, BC. Be sure to go check them out at 4windsbrewing.ca. Okay, Harm, this story starts with the Canucks getting hemmed in the first period. Let's start there. Not looking good at all to start this game. You got the sense that it was Tocchet called out his team. You're hoping for a response, and early on, you didn't really get that response. Obviously, there's the early penalty as well. The penalty kill is obviously a huge story of this game. But what went into the Canucks' slow start to this game?
I think it was Edmonton speed. They came out with some pace, with some purpose. I thought Dylan Holloway was creating some havoc on that second line. He was essential to the Evander Kane goal, which, by the way, from an Oilers perspective, you get 2 goals, one from Evander Kane, one from Matthias Janmark. 2 depth players. And yes, at this point, I'm calling Evander Kane a depth player. This is not the same player that was scoring goals left and right in his first playoff run with the Oilers. You get 2 goals out of those guys, and you still lose that game. That is a massive blown opportunity because secondary scoring has been so hard to come by.
That's it.
Again, the speed came from the unlikely sources in terms of how Edmonton came out of the gate, right? It was their 4th line.
Yeah.
Guys like Janmark, Ryan was their best line. The Canucks 4th line, as the game progressed, really had some pace as well. And we were kind of joking in the press box, like McDavid versus Miller. No, it's Di Giuseppe versus Matthias Janmark and Derek Ryan being the main showdown at the start of the game. But credit to the Canucks. After first several minutes, they settled down. And from that point onward, they didn't look back. To me, the story of this game really begins and ends with shutting Connor McDavid down.
Yes.
Another pointless night for him, the second of the series. And I think his 4-point outburst in game 2, where he completely took over, makes his point totals for the series look nicer than they actually should be, or somebody, an outside observer just looking at the box score stats, might think his impact over the course of each individual game has been, because game 2 is his only multi-night performance. And so for the Canucks to hold him off the score sheet, outscore him 2-0. So not just hold him to a draw, not just we're containing him, but the Canucks score 2 goals against McDavid. That's really the storyline of how you win that game. And it brings us to the penalty kill as well, which was massive.
Yeah. JT Miller talked last night about not respecting McDavid, but how he felt that they were worried too much about not getting scored on when they were on the ice against McDavid. And when we did our mega preview of this series, big topic of conversation was, okay, how would JT Miller do matching up against Connor McDavid? The answer is pretty damn good. We were expecting that was going to be the matchup that Tocchet went to. I feel like if you're the Oilers, you've got to try to get away from that. Like, they didn't put a real importance on doing that when they had last change at home. Like, they weren't really too focused on that. I think if you're Chris Knobloch at this point, you have to try to get away from that matchup in game 6.
Definitely. You're looking at 47 minutes and 22 seconds that JT Miller has played head-to-head against Connor McDavid in this series. Canucks haven't surrendered a single 5-on-5 goal against. And for the series as a whole, because McDavid has found a way to produce in situations when Miller has been off the ice. But even then, for this series, McDavid is 4 goals for and 4 against at 5-on-5. They've held him to a draw. And on top of that, Draisaitl has a negative goal differential at 5-on-5. To me, that's the series right there, is the Oilers aren't winning that even strength matchup at the top of the lineup.
Yep.
And we know that special teams before game 5 has helped them make up that difference, but you're not going to win this series if those guys aren't winning it at evens. And this is where it looks like not just the JT Miller, but that line as a whole has had a lot of success since a game 2 where they kind of got lit up, at least territorially.
Yeah, and here's the quote Farhan Lalji of TSN tweeted out. JT says his line has been giving McDavid and Draisaitl too much respect, says they've been playing not to get scored on instead of trying to be aggressive and initiate. That changed tonight. And yes, it did. Yeah, what do you want to say?
I watched back every shift that McDavid played, did an article for The Athletic, trying to break down how exactly did they shut McDavid down in game 5. It's up until 5:30. I'm a sicko, but this is what I love to do.
Wow.
So there are so many things that stand out, so many factors that went into it. I think you have to start with bringing up, before even discussing what the Canucks did well, I think all those excessive minutes that McDavid played early in the series are starting to catch up to him. He averaged more than 27 minutes per night through the first 3 games. First and foremost, he himself, McDavid, did not look like he had that same explosiveness out of the gate with the skating. So I think that is an important factor. And that's not to make an excuse for him. It's a reflection of how thin the Oilers are, and how even though they appeared on a surface level to perhaps have a little bit more juice with their forward depth compared to years past, they're still in the same situation they were in years past, where it's still just relying on 3 or 4 forwards to get the job done offensively. So that stands out. Outside of that, slowing McDavid down on the rush, they did not give him an opportunity to wind up in the neutral zone to create looks in transition. This is where they were staying above the puck at all times and were able to just latch onto him as soon as he got the puck. They also prevented the 2 back-breaking types of mistakes that usually give McDavid a chance to get going. Like, do you remember in game 2 the breakaway goal that he had where it's just like, oh my God, he looks like a video game character?
Yes.
It started with Susie diving in and getting caught. So there's 2 types of mistakes that give McDavid the time and space to cook. Is if you dive in on the forecheck, don't disrupt the play right there.
Yep.
And now you're caught.
And Tocchet spoke about that specifically, saying, what's your best case scenario? Like it's a aggressive play that even if it works out, you still have a lot of work to do before anything good happens. So just come back, retreat a little bit. And that's what the Canucks did a better job of last night. But there was also from Susie last night, there was that pinch last night as well.
Like that's an example on the contrary. And it's funny, it was against Edmonton's fourth line and they got torched, but they didn't do it against Connor. And on top of that, the other thing is they didn't turn the puck over in the neutral zone, right? That's an area where the Canucks, because they aren't a team that creates off the rush, that has pros and cons, right? At times it means their offense can sputter if their ability to establish the forecheck is hindered in a given game. But the pro of that is they're conservative. They dump and chase. They don't need to try and make plays at the offensive line. And so as a result, Edmonton doesn't have an opportunity to counter as often on the rush. So those two things stood out right away. And even when McDavid had a chance to pick up speed, like the 3-4 times that you're like, okay, he's got an offensive zone entry with possession here, Suter and Besser did a masterful job with their positioning, with their back check, and with taking away Ryan Nugent-Hopkins so that McDavid had no passing options. It would be rushes where it's like, okay, he's got a little bit of time and space, but McDavid doesn't have a clear lane to drive to the net. He's looking for a pass into the slot. He's looking for that backdoor play. Multiple examples of clips that I highlighted where Suter and Besser were angling somebody off. They were taking Nugent-Hopkins away. And that's the whole premise of defending as a 5-man unit.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've been doing such a good job of it, I guess, just lately. And I think there's a turning point last night. There's a turning point for a few different areas of the Canucks game and a few different players on the Canucks. I think this conversation naturally is moving toward talking about Elias Pettersson, who got the Let's Go PD chant again. Shout out to Bruff. Shout out to Jason Bruff for getting that going. The Let's Go PD chant starts last night. I got to be honest, as it was happening, I was starting to get a little cynical, thinking to myself, yeah, this is a little dumb. I'm not a fan of this. But hey,
hold on a second. You were bringing up the Trey Turner stuff yesterday.
I know. But seeing it in action, I was like, yeah, I don't know about this. One of the rare times I'm ever wrong happened last night because I doubted myself and I doubted the chant. I was chanting, but I doubted if the chant would be as effective as it was for Trey Turner, as I outlined on yesterday's show. But PD and Tocchet talked about how great that was after the game. So that's the thing is, like, if they're good with it, and PD undoubted best game of the playoffs for him.
Yeah.
Best game since like maybe January.
Do you guys want to hear from PD on just his
Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah. Thanks, Grady.
Means a lot. Always encouraging to have a defense behind you, or I always have that here, but just to hear them chant my name and it just makes me want to work even harder for them.
How different are the Canucks as a team? Like, that was their best game of the playoffs. You said it earlier in the show. How different are they? They're sticking with these line combos, obviously.
Yes.
This isn't going anywhere. How different are the Canucks if Elias Pettersson turns in performances like he did last night? And hell, even Nils Höglander. Like, Nils Höglander was a lot better last night. Calvin Pickard obviously robbed him on that shot that looked like it just went off the post on an open net. Calvin Pickard got a toe on that. Pickard was great in that game too. That's kind of another thing that I'm sure we'll talk about. But focusing on Pettersson a bit here, how different are the Canucks as a team than what we've seen so far if Pettersson just keeps up what he started last night?
They're way deeper offensively, way deeper, and not just at 5-on-5, but on the power play as well, where Vancouver's man advantage, I know they didn't get on the board with a goal, but they were snapping the puck with the type of movement, precision, and speed that I was like, okay, they're on one right now. They're getting quality looks. Tocchet had a lot of praise for the power play. And I really believe deep down that Pettersson was one of the standout reasons why it feels like when the power play is struggling, maybe that it's his sometimes indecisiveness with his shooting and passing, him bobbling pucks that, and not that it's only on him, but he's a contributing factor sometimes to when the power play looks a little bit lethargic, looks a little slow,
Not moving his feet.
to connect plays. Exactly. So I think it was evident his improvement on the power play and at even strength. I think the best word to describe him would be assertive. With and without the puck, he was in an attack mode with a shot. I believe he had 8 shot attempts in that game. He was letting it rip with some confidence. In the offensive zone, it was the first time in the playoffs where I was like, okay, he's actually manufacturing space for himself down low, where for most of these playoffs, he'll get a touch near the sideboard, somewhere on the perimeter in the offensive zone. And what's missing from his game that he typically does so well is he's able to beat a defender one-on-one, make a tight maneuver in high traffic to give himself more space, whether it's to immediately attack into the slot or just create separation to then make the next pass to a line mate in a dangerous situation. There's a shift finally in the second period where I was like, oh my God, he's doing that thing. He's creating space for himself. Exactly. And he set up Höglander for a couple of terrific chances down low. And even the penalty, the charging, by the way, which I'm still shaking my head at because, technically the rule book says you're able to, like, if you jump into a guy in any fashion, that is technically a charge. I've yet to ever seen that called on a reverse hit.
Harmon,
I love seeing that. I'm going to come out and say, I don't care that he got called for a penalty on it. I love to see it because I think a lot of fans to this point in the playoffs have wondered, hey, why is Pettersson a little bit hesitant, timid, facing physical contact? Like, this is a guy this isn't the Pettersson from 3-4 years ago that would get knocked over and is too skinny for the playoffs. And yet there had been moments in this postseason where you wanted him to be more sturdy on his feet, to win more wall battles. Finally seeing him sturdy on his feet as well is such a positive sign to see.
I don't want to get started, but I'm going to. That charging thing, every national reporter rushing out to tweet out the definition of charging from the rule book, obviously leaving out the next line, of course, just part of the rule. I tweeted out, it's simple. Like, if anybody can find me just one instance of the rule being applied that way, not even just in the playoffs, just ever. I just want to see it once. If anybody can find it, I would be very interested because I couldn't find any. And people were like, well, Nicholas Kronwall. And I was like, yeah, he was celebrated for taking runs at guys. Kronwall wasn't standing still. That's not what Nicholas Kronwall did. He did hit people with his back, yes, but he was going into them. That's different. That's obviously very, very different. I still had the tweet last night that Nicholas Kronwall's penalty minutes would have been 10,000 if charging was ever called like that. It's not. And this idea, and I'm not going to get started too much, but this idea that, Canucks fans, they think the league's out to get them, or they think officiating never goes their way, or they think this. There's too many examples of rules being applied one way to the Canucks, not just on the ice, off the ice. Hello, Luongo recapture. Different rules that are only applied to the Canucks, only punish the Canucks, and you can't find one instance in the history of this league that's been around for 120 something years, something like that. You can't find one other instance of it being applied that way, and the one example we have is it being applied like that against the Canucks. How can you not think that, okay, maybe there's something going on here. Maybe we should think about this a little bit more. Of course, Canucks fans are going to feel targeted. Of course.
Yeah, I don't have the tinfoil hat on.
Oh, I got it on for you.
But yeah, the officiating went against them in that.
Dude, the ref must have had the over on power play goals last night. Like, just needed to see a power play goal. Like, needed to see it. And also, like, the officiating's garbage all series, right? Like, both ways. And I actually think maybe not so much last night. I think it's a different conversation if the Oilers score, obviously. But it really feels like the officiating has actually been in favor of the Canucks in this series. Last night, not included. So I'll take the tinfoil hat off for that. But it's bad. Like McDavid, just I almost swore, just goes flying when Dakota Joshua like bumps into him, like head first, literally a dolphin dive.
That was a horrible call, but I will say the Canucks have gotten away with quite a bit of interference on him. Like I'm sure you saw the clip of Miller on a back check, basically just bear hugging McDavid there, and that's another thing.
It's
like
playoffs,
even though they get away with it, JT Miller is the master of interfering with guys without taking
and making it look like they're interfering with him.
And just like not getting called for it. Like it's astounded me in the press box how many times, and I know Miller still gets called for other penalties. He is a high penalty taker historically. However, there are so many times where I've been like, wow, JT's just grabbing a guy and he's not getting called. I don't know if it's a veteran thing. I don't know if it's a respect thing, but JT knows exactly where the line is and always seems to find a way to impede McDavid's flight path. Really, that's what it is. It's not so much always the clutch and grab, right? It's not that exaggerated. Like that one clip, they weren't doing that all game on him, obviously. But it's like off the opening faceoff, for example, Edmonton wins it and
McDavid
Miller with a little
3 seconds.
But like Miller gives him like a little cross check and is able to just slow his momentum down, picking up speed through the neutral zone without the puck. Like that's never going to get called in a playoff game right off the opening faceoff. So Miller should do that. That gives him a competitive advantage.
The Oilers Nation crew, I'm not surprised. The Oilers Nation crew thinks that the PD charging penalty was perfect. Again, anybody that thinks, oh yeah, that's a great call, just find one example. I just want one example. Not even of playoffs. I'll give you the regular season. Hell, I'll give you preseason. Give me one example of that being applied that way. Hell, any league. Not like youth hockey. You can't use that. But any league, any professional league of hockey, just find me one instance of the rule being applied that way. Just one. I just want one. And we've got a clip from JT Miller. Let's hear from JT Miller last night.
I have faith in myself. I mean, I speak honestly with you guys, whether it's good or bad. And didn't really just like my game the other night, at the end of the day. And I thought that kind of transitioned into being the reason we got scored on late in the game. So, I mean, I was honestly evaluating myself. And then, yesterday and today I just got focused and just thought as a team we all played a solid hockey game today.
I'm reading the chat. I don't know if it's true, so I don't want to call them out. But this is from Ty David, so I'm going to read it. Oilers Nation crew thinks the refs missed 10 other Canuck penalties and the Oilers penalties were all wrong. I don't know if that's true. I got to check. I got to fact check. Although, I'll tell you, I do have some salty colleagues this morning over at Oilers Nation. And hey, did you realize?
They lost. Of course they're salty.
I was thinking about this, though. Do you realize Frank Saravalli is should be, if he's sticking with what he said yesterday, he's going to be rooting for the Canucks.
Yeah, he wants the shorter series.
He wants the shorter series. He wants to fly home, which I respect that.
I believe him.
So Frank Saravalli better get his towel out.
Francis.
Game 6, they've got.
What, he's gonna have
a
a white towel in Rogers Place where they got the orange pom poms.
Yeah. Well, all the orange pom poms are taken up by the Edmonton media.
They give him out on press row.
Yeah, I'll give Frank my towel. Okay. Anything else you wanted to get to specifically?
Yeah, so I think a massive part of why the Canucks finally dominated territorially in that game is because their breakouts and forecheck were allowing them to control the puck way more. And that's also a huge part of why they were able to shut down McDavid is McDavid isn't just a player that creates off the rush. In game 2, when he took over, it was him and Draisaitl also winning a ton of puck battles, forcing turnovers. And once they got set up in the offensive end, it's like they're cycling. The Canucks can't break it up. A lot of that started with, the Canucks had an opportunity to break the puck out, and they didn't against that McDavid line. Whereas in this game, massive credit to a player like Tyler Myers, for example, for compared to game 4, making such better decisions under pressure on the breakout. They were much better connected. I asked Rick Tocchet why he thought the breakouts were
Crisp.
substantially improved.
Mm-hmm.
And he brought up two things. He said, number one, the coaching staff gave the players a video presentation on a few tweaks that they wanted to make tactically. And number two, the forwards also showed more urgency in coming back to spots. And that's, again, Miller, Suter, Besser, guys like that doing that. And what that does is the breakout and the forecheck are connected, right? You want to talk about why the Canucks had so many offensive chances. It starts with getting out of your own zone cleanly, because think about it. If you fail to get out of your own zone once or twice, if you pull off an Ian Cole, right?
Yep.
Then by the time you eventually regain full control, all you can do with the puck is go high flip and your players need to change. Or if a forward gets it and he has a chance to skate it out, it's I'm getting to the red line. I'm chipping it in. I'm going off for a change. And now Edmonton, they get the puck behind the net. Vancouver's changing, so they don't have any pressure on them. They have an easy exit, right?
Yeah.
So whereas you make the clean play the first time, now all of a sudden you've got fresh legs and you've got some speed coming through the neutral zone to take advantage of Edmonton's defenseman, which is, by the way, I thought the entire blue line on Edmonton's side struggled to break the puck out. I think we expected it from their second and third pairs. The big difference was Ekholm and Bouchard really struggled in that department. And this is where Ekholm as well took a maintenance day during one of the morning skates in Edmonton. A lot of people have been speculating about whether he's playing through some type of illness. He's consistently played in the 23, 24, 25 minute range. Only just over 18 minutes for him in game 5. He looks compromised. He looks slow. He looked gassed in that game. And Bouchard as well, the giveaway on Di Giuseppe's goal. That is one of the biggest reasons the Canucks took the game over from the second period onward.
Okay. There's so much to get to. Let's listen to Rick Tocchet speaking about his players responding in that game after what was not a great game 4 for them.
I'm an honest guy, and they're an honest group. They love feedback. Sometimes it's, you got to be careful with the messaging, and they take it. I mean, that's the one thing I love this group. Even the guys that didn't play today, they were smiling, they were cheering the guys. I love that. So that's what you play for the crest. Doesn't mean they have to be happy that they're out, but you could see there were a lot of smiles in that room for even the guys that didn't play. I love that. So the bounce back or whatever you want to call it, it's been all year. I mean, it happened a few times this year where it wasn't going. We didn't like our effort, and we dealt with it, and we usually bounce back. So it's all the players. You got to give them a ton of credit.
Let's talk about the PDG angle. We haven't even touched on it yet. Phillip Di Giuseppe scores that goal. Huge for the Canucks' fourth line. Like, you looked at those line combos, and you're like, all right, the fourth line's job tonight is to not get scored on, right? They go out, score that goal. Good for Phillip Di Giuseppe. Also bad for Evan Bouchard. Holy cow. It's poetry in motion, right? You heard the Edmonton media, the Oilers fans on Twitter being like, oh, look at the point totals of Evan Bouchard compared to Quinn Hughes. Evan Bouchard, and we heard it in the regular season too. Oh, Evan Bouchard's this close to being as good as Quinn Hughes. Okay. Just, I don't even need to say anything. Go watch the highlights of last night's game, or the lowlights if you're an Oilers fan. Let's get to the Phil Di Giuseppe angle of all this, because Phil Di Giuseppe and his wife, Melanie, that's her name, right? No, Maggie. That's it. I don't know why I didn't know the name and threw it out there anyway, but yeah, they welcomed their baby boy. What's his name? Sam?
Yes.
There you go. I should probably write this down. They welcomed their baby boy in on Sunday night. PDG talked about how it was a difficult pregnancy. They had family coming in and out, and he was very emotional talking about it. And hey, Phil Di Giuseppe, friend of the show, like, he's been on the show. I told Phil Di Giuseppe about Commercial Drive. Did you know that? I think
I've only heard about it 5 times.
Highlight of my career is telling Phil Di Giuseppe about Commercial Drive. Didn't know it existed, and I told him about it. Said you'll feel right at home. I hope he's frequent Commercial Drive. I should go talk to him.
Speaking of Italian things, by the way, I texted this to you. Canucks fans, if you haven't had a chance to see the video tutorial of Tocchet when he's a player, he does like a 2-minute tutorial on how to cook spaghetti.
Don't call that a tutorial. He snapped the spaghetti.
It is like the funniest thing ever.
We might have to play it. I'm going to get it and we're going to play it.
It's on Twitter somewhere. I think you can find it on YouTube as well.
Yeah, that's where it's from.
Try searching like Rick Tocchet spaghetti. I texted it to Quads and he was so irate.
It's you don't snap spaghetti. You just don't. Like, Harmon, if you went to a restaurant and you ordered spaghetti and meatballs and your spaghetti's this long, Aren't you annoyed?
I don't eat spaghetti, so
What do you mean you don't? You've never had spaghetti?
I've had spaghetti before. Yes.
And
I don't know.
what? Do you not like spaghetti?
I like pasta more.
That is pasta. It's a different kind of pasta.
Yeah, but like,
What's your favorite type of pasta? Mine's penne.
rigatoni.
Rigatoni's a good choice.
Yeah.
You like penne?
Yeah.
Fusilli? I like fusilli.
That's pretty good too. I just don't like spaghetti. I think spaghetti's too messy for me.
Well, how are you eating it? What do you mean it's too messy?
Like not messy. It's not like I'm throwing sauce all over my mouth.
Two forks.
But it's just
Guy needs a bib.
when I take like a forkful or whatever, it sort of feels like it's too long and you have to like chomp down and make sure like it.
What are you talking about? Dude, I no, it's not too long. It's supposed to be long. You just
that's why I don't eat
You
spaghetti.
get yourself a nice spoon. Okay, you got a spoon and a fork. That's what you need to eat spaghetti. Not a knife, Rick Tocchet. You get your and I'm sure, you know what?
Okay,
I haven't asked him about this. I'm sure he's a little wiser in his older age now, right? That was a young Rick Tocchet. That was a foolish Rick Tocchet. Maybe he didn't know. I'm sure. Look, I'm sure now, if not back then, now for sure, Rick Tocchet's had some fine Italian dining. And I'm sure he didn't ask the waitress, yeah, can you make sure they snap my spaghetti in half? No, that's not what you do. You put it in and it's frays in your pot, right? Like it's sprayed out kind of. And then when it cooks, it naturally falls in. You might have to give it a little help, but it cooks perfectly that way. You get yourself a bigger pot if you need it.
Sure. I've never cooked spaghetti. I only cook pasta. So
We got the video. It is pasta. We got
whatever.
the video.
Like,
We got the
other
video.
types of pasta. You know what I mean?
Quads to give us a tutorial, but yes, here is the video. Give
Okay,
me
yeah,
one second because it might not load properly.
Okay.
Wait for it.
And for those on the
Just
podcast,
came back from practice and I have about an hour to kill here. I gotta make the old bachelor meal. This is the hockey player staple meal is the spaghetti. Gotta get the water boiling, which is pretty simple. Spaghetti sauce. That is very important to Rick Tocchet's meal. Jake Caulfield eats about 8 pounds of this a day. I like to break it in half myself.
oh,
Stick that in there. Gotta make sure you stir it. That again is a tip from my mother, I must admit. This is a big secret of mine, is so you don't want it to boil over effect, you put a little olive oil in there.
he's right about that.
Have it al
He's
dente.
bang on.
I hate watery spaghetti.
Yeah,
I hate
yeah.
watery sauce too. So I like
Yeah,
to read the
look at
paper and wait, while you're waiting for the spaghetti to boil. This is always an art trying to try it because it's hot, so you gotta bounce around your hand with it,
Bang on.
We're not
Okay, that's
ready
enough.
yet.
I think that's
Now,
enough.
this sort of
Brady.
stuff drives my
Now he's
mom
straining
crazy.
the pasta.
Instead of bringing the pot over here, I'll just do this. So I don't care if it drips.
How
you know
many
what I mean?
things have
Who
you written
cares?
down that's wrong
There's
in
always
this
an art
video?
trying not to spill this stuff. This is all done within 20 minutes. Gotta have cheese. Definitely gotta have cheese. You try to set it up here like this.
Here's
so
the
you
thing.
Can eat, you can read
Brady,
the
you can cut it.
sports
You can cut it.
page. Try this.
He's right. He's right about a lot of stuff in that video. Literally the only thing he does wrong is snap the spaghetti in half. Do you think?
give him a break?
What do you think?
Bachelor.
you
He
think-
said it himself. His meal for Bachelor.
Do you think
young guy?
Canucks PR would like be on board within the off season if we like have Rick Tocchet out
Oh,
to cook spaghetti
and
with
Phil
them?
Di Giuseppe.
Yeah.
Imagine the content from that. Apparently,
boy.
Zadorov loved that at practice or at the availabilities today. He was like, someone showed him it, and he was just dying of laughter.
Well, look at the flow.
Yeah.
Look at the flow on Tocchet there. And he's also just casually walking around in the back-to-back Stanley Cup champs shirt. That's a flex if I've ever seen one. But yeah, I don't know. I'd like to talk to Rick about it. See if he stands by snapping the spaghetti.
Clearly, I know nothing about this. I'm way out of my depth
that's
on
fine.
this conversation.
Yeah, we've all known that. This is the longest segment of the show is us talking about spaghetti. Don't know how that happened. It's not even anyone else yet. Let's get back to the game. I'm sure people ask more cooking questions in the chat.
Cooking with quads coming to Canucks.
Well, you know
Convo.
what? In the off season, it's good off season content. Just me cooking in the kitchen. Yeah, you don't snap it in half though. You just don't, and you also salt your water.
Yeah,
Little pro tip: when
that's
you cook
key.
pasta, put some salt in your water.
Someone was saying if you put oil in the water, then the sauce properly doesn't stick to the pasta; it slides off. I saw that comment. I don't know.
If you put too much oil,
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Too much. lather it up too much.
Yeah, you don't put
need
too
that.
much, and I see that. Andrew is correct about that, but you don't put too much. You put like a splash of olive oil. You don't. Yeah.
By the
You
way, to shift it back to the game, so we can get back on.
No, I'm not
back on
ready.
the
I'm not
rails,
ready to do that.
To get it back on the rails. Actually, speaking of off the
Mr.
rail,
Lube might be a natural transition there. Spaghetti, oil, lube.
Nope. No. Okay, go on.
I was gonna say the Canucks are playing with a little bit of fire in how often they're deploying Ian Cole against Leon Draisaitl. Like that has to change. Another failed clearance by him that I believe led to the Evander Kane goal eventually. Again, this is what I've been saying. Like, you don't need to even necessarily take him out of the lineup. You can at this point if you want to. Like, he's continued struggling to such a point where I'm like, oh, geez, this is like at what point does the benefit of the doubt run out? But also in that first period, for example, I was looking at the ice times and Leon Draisaitl, the Vancouver Canuck that he'd spent the most 5 and 5 minutes against in that first period was Ian Cole. I'm like, why is your least effective defenseman in the series up against Draisaitl? And the main thing too is I think Hughes is a little bit wasted because they've got Soucy and Myers predominantly going up against McDavid, which makes sense. And they've got Hughes out predominantly against Edmonton's bottom six, which I understand the angle of you want to take advantage offensively of their of weaker parts of the lineup, but I'd rather have the best defenseman on the planet this season out there against Draisaitl on a more consistent basis.
Undoubtedly. And I'm wondering about the Hughes angle. Why aren't they playing Hughes more?
I'm not sure.
It has to be to limit minutes, right? Like it just has to be. We don't want to burn this guy out in the first 2 rounds, especially when it looks like his team's going to the Cup final.
And who knows? He took some really heavy hits in the Nashville series.
Yeah.
We don't know where he's at health wise.
Sure.
I also wonder if, quite simply, in terms of Hughes and his size, especially out there against Draisaitl, how well Draisaitl protects the puck down low. I wonder if stylistically they feel that they need more meat and potato style defensemen out there to try and break up the cycle against those guys, defend the front of the net. It's not saying I agree with that logic, but I wonder if that's part of the thought process.
We should ask once we're done talking about spaghetti with them. We should ask Rick talking about that. I feel like that's a
and it's not just Hughes,
it's not
right?
so topical when they win is the thing.
Yeah, of course. And it's not just Hughes, right? It's also Hronek. Hronek is a guy that doesn't necessarily excel on puck battles down low, and it's not just about Cole. It's you got Zadorov out there who has that size and can break up the cycle, defend the front of the net. I wonder if that's part of it.
By the way, Hronek last night, easily his best game of the playoffs.
For sure. Looked way better.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Like, we were talking yesterday about how, okay, does a bad playoff performance affect the number that Phillip Hronek's getting in free agency? And we were in the context of Nikita Zadorov is also a free agent. They've got some free agents that are looking for contracts this offseason. How much does playoff performance play into that? Best performance of the playoffs from Phillip Hronek.
There was that one-on-one rush. Draisaitl came out at him in just like perfect position.
Yeah.
Puck shot out of play. Looked confident with the puck. Just had more overall jump to his game.
Yeah.
That's the best I've seen him skate in a really long time.
Yep. Anything else on Hronek that you wanted to get to?
No. I think it's pretty simple. We all saw he played really well.
Someone in the chat pointed out that we started talking about the nice Phil Di Giuseppe story and then just got so sidetracked.
My bad.
Grady out to go get a video about talking and spaghetti.
Well, here, let's hear from JT Miller on Di Giuseppe in the fourth line as a whole.
Well, he's got the baby legs. That's a real thing. And I swear it's a real thing. I swear I've seen it like a lot now where guys come in and play their best game. Does something to you, your brain, and he was unbelievable. That line just created a lot of energy, and I thought it's a contagious thing when our team skates and we create stalls in the forecheck. It seems like we do it for the next 10 minutes every time. Like, it's contagious in our lineup, and they did a hell of a job tonight of driving play and creating long shifts, and then all they have is the punch out, and we get to go right back down their throat. I mean, it happens a lot like that for us. So when we skate, and their line was a big part of that, we're hard to handle as a group.
Yeah, and he also spoke post-game. Do we have the video of his scrum, Grady? Just the one post-game in the Canucks locker room?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we don't really need it, but it was an emotional Phil Di Giuseppe, and people have seen the video probably by now and heard it. If you haven't, we're not going to play it. We don't have it right now, but you can just go to Canucks Army. We wrote a story just on the quotes that he gave post-game. the personal side of the players, it's always really cool to see that, the human side of the players, and Phil Di Giuseppe really showed that side last night. We are happy to hear that mom and baby are both healthy. And of course, Canucks fans are very happy to hear that too. And of course, happy that he got the baby legs, as JT Miller called them in that press conference. A real thing, said Miller. A real thing. You have your baby and you play better. So I had this thought last night. You know where I'm going with this.
Oh God.
Quad's late night thoughts.
All the married Canucks players, right? I had the thought, and I'll walk you through my logic. So I was thinking, okay, if everybody plans to have their kid at this time of year, you're going to get the best possible team. And if my new theory is correct, the baby legs is infectious because everybody played pretty well last night. I don't think it's a coincidence that there was a baby born. They rally around it. Phil Giuseppe gets the game puck. They put it in the, what's it called? The little cutout of the cup they got there. They got 7 wins now. They got 9 to go. Am I good on the math?
Yes, you're good.
So I don't know. I just got thinking, if everybody had a child at this time of year, but then I was thinking, okay, well, if Phil Di Giuseppe had to be away from the team for 2 games, you can't afford that.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I thought you were going to go the angle of almost more superstitious of Di Giuseppe has to be the one to do this every year.
Oh, I like that. We should have him on the show. Throw this idea out.
He definitely had the baby legs on that one back check where he just zoomed past McDavid.
Phil Di Giuseppe, that was the best game I've ever seen from Phil Di Giuseppe. Who had the tweet? Someone had the tweet last night. If you guys know what I'm talking about, just jump in with the name. Someone tweeted out, funny prank last night.
Oh, it was Drance.
Yes. He tweeted out, funny prank last night with Connor McDavid and Phil Di Giuseppe swapping jerseys. Like, so good. So funny.
This is the version of Di Giuseppe that was effective with Miller and Besser in the top 6.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Right? That speed, that tenacity on the forecheck. And then for whatever reason, he just seemed to lose. And I think it's just difficult to maintain that level of
deployment.
Not deployment, but intensity and urgency over 82 games. Like, that's such a taxing style to play. So it sort of makes sense that, okay, he hasn't played a lot in these playoffs. He gets a little bit of a refresher. He comes back in and he's got this extra juice.
Well, the expectation for him was to contribute offensively. And how many times did we see Miller and Besser setting him up? And he just didn't have the skill. But now he's on the 4th line. He can kind of stick to simplify things, whether that's forechecking or just being physical overall. And then any added offense, especially in a playoff series, if your 4th line is scoring a clutch goal like that, like, what more can you ask for, really? Especially in the limited minutes they got last night. Let's hear from Rick Tocchet on that 4th line.
That Podzi played really well. Deej was, he had his kid there, so he said that was a big highlight, but the cherry on top tonight, him getting the goal. I mean, it's a pretty good story. Thought Alms was good. I thought that 4th line really helped us. I thought it was good for us.
Didn't Phil have twins?
I don't know.
Like, I'm pretty sure. Am I not?
I don't know.
This isn't his first kid.
It's not, yeah.
I think he had twins. His wife had twins.
No, it was Carson Soucy.
Oh,
or maybe he had twins. They both did. You got to get on. You know what? You got your next Canucks Army article, Quads, is Baby Watch.
Baby Watch.
Listing all their names.
A weekly column.
Yes. Who's shagging?
Didn't he have a kid, like, in training camp?
I think, or near the tail end of the offseason. Yeah.
So the Canucks have one of their best seasons in franchise history. Phil has another kid. They turn it around in the playoffs. Harmon, you are on to something. Phil Di Giuseppe needs to have a kid every year. Not just every year.
I didn't say
you
it.
did.
You were
Your words. Your words, not mine.
Brought it up.
Your words, not mine. You just said, Phil, have a kid before training camp every year, so it's a good regular season, and then line up the next one for playoffs.
Yeah, I'll leave that to you to pitch.
Oh
that
yeah,
idea
okay.
then.
It wasn't twins. Yeah, Ty David pointed out in the chat, and Warchild in the chat as well. He said he has 2 kids now. He had the daughter in training camp. I think it was training camp or before training camp, and then the boy. Good for Phil, man. Like I like Phil Giuseppe a lot. Like he's, we talk about the nice people in this industry and in this sport. Phil Di Giuseppe is one of them. I've always liked my interactions with Phil.
For sure.
A lot of years he grinded it through.
That's right.
the AHL, Carolina,
Yeah.
New York, and some guys end up in Europe because they can get more opportunity.
Totally.
But credit to him, he stuck with it, and he's really carved like a niche, extra forward, 12th forward kind of role.
Phil
on
Di
this team.
Giuseppe had not much of a role under Bruce Boudreau. Rick Tocchet came in, and Phil Di Giuseppe jumped at the chance to be a Rick Tocchet player, and it's worked out for him. It's a great story. It's a great story. All you kids out there, don't give up on your dreams. Like me right now. For those on the podcast, I pointed to my mustache. As I said, don't give up on your dreams. Okay, let's get to our poll question, which is brought to you by Mr. Lube. Where is it here? I had it somewhere. There it is. Yep. Time now for our poll question brought to you by Mr. Lube. Need a tire change or tire service? Mr. Lube provides no appointment tire service and sales. Drop by anytime for tire rotation, tire repair, and balancing, servicing all makes and models, including electric vehicles. There are 16 locations in the Lower Mainland. For one near you, go to mrlube.com. Okay, pull it up, Grady. I was excited about this poll question. I came up with this poll question. Who has been the MVP in the second round series? Our options are JT Miller, Arturs Silovs, and Brock Besser, and then others not even in this. Like, nobody voted for other. The results so far: 54% of voters saying Arturs Silovs, 34% say JT Miller, 12% say Brock Besser, and 0.4% of people say other. So let's focus on those three: Miller, Silovs, Besser. Silovs is winning the poll. I think there's a great case to be made for Silovs, but I think it's hard to go away from JT Miller on this one when you look at what we've spoken about earlier on this show about how the Canucks haven't given up a goal to Connor McDavid at 5-on-5 with JT Miller on the ice.
Yeah, that's a massive part of it. And on top of that, he has been, even if scoring wise, he's only come through with a couple goals, he's got a ton of primary assists, right? So you're getting the offensive production out of him as well. And maybe it's recency bias coming out of a monster Game 5 performance, but I was definitely leaning towards Miller for just being such a two-way workhorse and still finding a way to manufacture offense in the most taxing situation you can deploy a forward in, which is to shadow Connor McDavid.
Okay, let's get to anyone else. But before that, we got a quick break. I'm going to tell you about our friends over at Wendy's. Frozen pucks are awesome when they're in the back of the other guy's net, but that doesn't mean you'd want to eat one. That's why Wendy's only ever uses fresh Canadian beef that's never seen the inside of a freezer in all of their burgers. Whether you order a Baconator, Dave's Single, or even a JBC, you'll only ever find real fresh beef that's juicy and loaded with fresh toppings. So download the Wendy's app, check out the latest deals, and order a burger that's only job is being delicious. Okay, now a quick word from the BC government, and then you're going to do anyone else? Or yeah. Perfect. All right, let's get to it. Quick break. To hear from helpstartshere.gov.bc.ca. We've all heard of the overdose crisis, also known as the toxic drug crisis. But did you know that it affects men disproportionately? Last year, 78% of people dying here in BC were men, and the majority were 30 to 59 years old. It's not easy to struggle with addiction, and the stigma around it can make it harder for people to reach out for help. But there is help and support available. Every journey is different, and the thing that helps might not be the same for everyone. So when someone does reach out, be compassionate and have open, non-judgmental conversations. We here at Canucks Conversation want to be part of the solution. If you or someone you care about is struggling, you can find support and services near you at helpstartshere.gov.bc.ca. You can also watch powerful real-life stories of recovery on the Help Starts Here website.
Yep. It's because the video played.
But the people on the podcast could hear us?
I think so.
Okay, great. Well, folks, we did an anyone else read, which means we talked about the Vancouver Canadians. And look at that hat. Look, there's so much. The Canadians team store over at Nat Bailey Stadium, such a great place to be. So many different options.
Why don't we just bonus the Canadians an extra love? Harm, could you do us a favor?
You don't need to do it again. I got it, Harm.
No, because Quads, I'm telling you, it won't make it to the podcast.
I'll do
just the way. Okay.
Yeah.
You got it?
Okay. I got it. Yeah. Harm can't do anyone else. Yeah.
In a row?
Dude, then we'd have to pay him overtime. Okay. The great spring weather's here, and it's time to get out to the Nat to catch your Vancouver Canadians in action. The Seas are on the road, but have a 6-game homestand starting on Tuesday, May 28th, which includes a superstar appearance by Buck Martinez on the 28th, a nooner at the Nat on Friday, May 31st, and a family fun Sunday on June 2nd. Catch fireworks, giveaways, Friday nooners, and superstar appearances all spring and summer long. To get your tickets, call 604-872-5232 or go to CanadiansBaseball.com. Okay, let's get to anyone else. We've got some. Grady, people say we're still muted, by the way.
No, we're good now.
Yeah, we're good now?
I see what happened. It's because when the video played, the microphone's muted.
Everybody's screaming. Okay, no, we're good. We're good. There's the comment saying that we're back. That's so funny. Okay, we're back.
Sorry about that, folks. I'll own that one.
It's okay. We're back. It's all that matters. And man, I'm just loving this weather. Gonna barbecue tonight. I'm so excited for the weekend, and it's a huge game tomorrow. We haven't even really previewed the game tomorrow, which we will be back on Monday to break down. I'm not gonna ask you. No, I'm not gonna make you do a prediction. There's no sense. No sense doing a prediction. Canucks in 6. Yeah, we'll be back on Monday to break it all down. But let's get to anyone else. We got some fun ones in the chat here, so let's get to it. Grady, can you get some in our chat here? Because I'm scrolling up and there's so many. Okay, here we go. This one from VinXD. It seems that the Canucks PK figured out the Oilers' power play. They kept the same structure, but more aggressive. Can you comment on how Oilers might look to adjust and what Tocchet can do to prepare for that? I thought the Canucks did a really good job of getting sticks in lanes and being really quick to pressure the Oilers. That felt like the change that they made.
They were way more aggressive pressuring players on the flanks and up top. Teddy Bluger, I thought, had a monster game on the slots. PK.
Yeah.
Just how disruptive he was. He blocked a Bouchard shot, had a diving clearance, stripped McDavid of the puck on one of the penalty kills. I also think they, on the first 3 Edmonton power plays, started the man advantage or the PK from the Canucks perspective by winning the draw and getting an initial clear. That helps so much relative to if you lose that draw, they get set up right away. I think from an Edmonton perspective, here's the thing. If you're going to be aggressive, which the Canucks were, it increases your chances of forcing them into turnovers, creating a change in possession, and getting the clear, which the Canucks executed well on. But for Edmonton, they were bobbling pucks. I don't think they were sharp or crisp enough on the same page with their own movement. I also don't think the ice was very good last night.
No. Evergreen. We've been saying that all year.
I know. So all those factors playing into it, the counter punch to that, if you're Edmonton, would be, okay, you just zip the puck around that much faster, and there are then going to be opportunities if you have the PKers running around to find open seams. We'll see if that changes in Game 6. And the other thing is, they didn't allow any cross seam passes through that slot. That lane east-west was completely taken away.
So I hear owner quads cap on for a sec. And you brought up some great points about the penalty kill. I'm going to take it away from that. I had this idea when I was thinking about the bad ice, and I also saw a video of ice being taken out of an NHL rink. Do you know where I'm going with this? Can owner quads walk down from the owner's suite and just like turn down the what's it called? The temperature thing? Like, can you make it warmer when the Oilers are on a power play and make the ice melt a little bit and then just crank it back up?
Yeah, I'm sure nobody would notice.
No, they wouldn't. I'm the owner. What are they going to do?
Yeah,
I report to no one.
Exactly.
That's right.
This is your league.
Somebody in the chat who knows about ice and everything. Because I feel like you could.
Everything.
I feel like I could pay for an upgrade where it's like quick melting ice and quick freezing ice. You know?
Actually asked PJ about this. What was that? There was a game in Nashville when it was like 25 degrees out. Apparently they have the same refrigeration system as when then GM Place opened. And they don't have a proper dehumidifier system.
Who? Sorry, Nashville or the Canucks?
The Canucks. So instead what happens, they keep the ice more colder than most rinks. So it freezes in these weird layers and it makes it harder to skate on.
Smart. But I'm not asking
Home
about
ice
that.
advantage.
Yeah, I'm not asking about that. I'm asking if I can change it on the fly.
I don't think so.
Maybe like remote control. I don't even have to go down. It's just like an app on my phone.
Yeah.
Crank up the
It's
heat.
like you turn your lights on and you're in your smart home.
Automate it, right? You know, when the Oilers, when the power play music starts, the
AI.
Canucks are going on the penalty kill, just automate it. The penalty kill music button also melts the ice.
Exactly.
For 2 minutes.
AI.
Okay. RV in the chat. How much does Bluger get paid next season? This is an off-season question. It's hard to answer, but I think there has to be a level of Teddy Bluger must like where he's at with the Canucks, right?
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm not saying we're in hometown discount territory, but I think you're getting there.
I don't know.
Well,
it depends. You have to know the guy.
Yeah. Also depends what they do for the
What
rest of the
priorities they
playoffs, right?
It also, like, the biggest question with Bluger isn't so much the cap hit because he's already making 1.9.
Mhm.
It's the term.
Yeah.
That's what I'd be looking for as a player. Not only because it, of course, enhances the total money you're getting, you're guaranteeing yourself from that contract, but also just the security of knowing, hey, I'm going to be in one location for a settled number of years, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, maybe a team is willing to give the JB Eagle contract and give 4 years. Term will be the interesting thing that I keep an eye on with Bluger's.
And there's a lot of guys pending UFAs on the Canucks that are due for raises. There also has to be a point where you say, okay, I'm comfortable walking away because we just can't fit all this. So AFP Analytics has him projected at 2 years at 2.5. Now, this was done back in January, so could that adjust a bit? We'll see, depending on how he does the rest of the playoffs.
Okay, this one from Roadster Gaming in the chat. Does anyone else think that Quad's doing a baby watch segment every week with that mustache is an absolutely horrible idea? Yeah, I think that's the reason I'm not going to do baby watch.
I agree. Great comment.
Okay, no
idea.
At this point, do you think they could move Mikheyev in a trade without retaining?
It's too early.
Too early, sure. Like I want to. I'll literally transition the conversation like that because I was talking to Bag Milk yesterday, and we were talking about the Oilers offseason and what they're going to do. And one thing we talked about is that Brett Kulak, who I think has played pretty well, like he made some really smart plays last night all series long. Brett Kulak might end up being a casualty of them needing to clear cap space. Like they might move him out in a cap clearing move this offseason.
It needs to be Cozy CC,
but you might get something for Kulak.
True, but CC is so bad.
What does CC have left on his contract? Kulak is 2.5 and he has 2 seasons after this one left.
I think Susi might be entering the final year of his deal.
CC. I did that yesterday too. CC, Susi. It's too close.
Oh, did I say Susi back?
You said Susi.
My bad.
You're talking about CC. Oh, okay, so you don't even need to do. This is the final year of his contract. He's a free agent after this.
No, he's 24, 25 locked up.
Okay.
3.25. That's ugly.
Is it that ugly that you move it out?
Yes. Have you watched him play? He's been on the ice for 8 of the 11 goals against at 5-on-5. He's a train wreck.
I don't want to make you a bet. I don't want to make a bet, but I would bet that Brett Kulak gets moved out before CC.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
But CC for that contract is such a liability. 8 of the 11 goals.
Mr. Whale, he can't decide which super bad character I look like. I'm trying to decide this now that he says it. He said I look like McLovin. You've seen Superbad, right? Okay. And then he said I look like Michael Cera. I can't decide which one he's more correct about.
Apparently, you look like Nuge yesterday.
Well, yeah. You know what? I'm a little curious about this because it was way more noticeable in yesterday's show. I guess just home lighting. I don't know. Anyways,
by the way, it is wild that they have not
in.
inserted Stetcher into the series.
They absolutely have to,
dude.
It's so long overdue. We've been talking about this since game 1. Harm. We saw game 1 of Nurse and Cece. We were like, okay, yeah, so you're gonna get Stetcher in there at some point, and they just keep going back. They keep rolling it back. That's bad coaching. And I like Chris Knobloch. I think Chris Knobloch should have been the runner-up for the Jack Adams. He's not even a finalist. Anyways, also we didn't even talk about the Rick Tocchet angle of all this. Kind of, we talked about the line combinations being good, but he continues to just be putting on a coaching masterclass in these playoffs.
Yeah, he got the response that he needed out of his team after calling them out. That's it's a bold thing to do, especially in calling out Pettersson again. He clearly got the response he wanted, and he just continues to push all the right buttons with his team.
Okay. Anyone else have anything? Yeah, we got some. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll close it on this from Andreas in the chat. Will the Canucks keep the same line combinations for Game 6? Seems like a no-brainer. Absolutely agree with you. Harm, I'll ask you this to close it out. There's the conversation in Edmonton now of should you go back to Stuart Skinner or Calvin Pickard? Luke Gazdick, who's doing the Oilers post-game show, didn't realize that it's supposed to be a Canucks post-game show as well, but the Oilers post-game show on Sportsnet, he was throwing out, oh yeah, it's Stuart Skinner's net. I think if you're a Canucks fan, you're hoping the Oilers go, yep, this is Stuart Skinner's net. Let's get him back in there. Calvin Pickard was great. Calvin Pickard was awesome. That was the best goaltending performance they've gotten all series. Are you guys on?
He was solid, dude.
He was fine.
He was not as good.
You're just wrong.
Okay, hold on.
You're just wrong.
Stop looking at the numbers.
You're just wrong.
Watch him with your eyes, Quads. How many rebounds did he leave straight into the slot off the rush, dude?
Yes.
Those pucks all got past Stuart Skinner. At least there were rebounds.
And let me make it clear also. I would start Pickard. That's my take. I'm starting Pickard over Skinner.
Okay.
But I'm just pushing back against this idea that he was great or awesome. Like he wasn't competent.
Awesome.
Yes.
And that is the best that an Oilers goaltender has played.
But you came out swinging. Oh, it was great. He was awesome.
If you're on the Oilers bell curve, okay. If you're on the Oilers bell curve, this is where like Nikita Tolopilo is, okay? Stuart Skinner's down here. And for those in the podcast, one hand is higher than the other. Calvin Pickard's like right there. That's the best goaltending they've gotten all series long.
The bar was so low though with Skinner.
But right? Pickard was legitimately good in that game. Like he was good.
He was solid, but there are things the Canucks can exploit. First of all, in Game 4, they didn't even test him.
No.
Right?
Oh, for sure.
And then last night, like, don't get me wrong, he made some difficult saves, but he also was swimming all over in his net.
Yes.
Like, do you remember the Brock Besser? What was the one time where we like lost an edge? And
he fell over. He is bad technically, Quads. I'm a little surprised that you're beating the drum.
Expected goals according to natural
told you
stat.
stop looking at the numbers. How is this? But I told you right off the bat, like his numbers look good, but like watch him with your eyes.
Better than Stuart Skinner.
Yeah,
is what my eyes tell me.
But you came out way hotter than that. You're like, it was great. He was awesome.
He was compared to Stuart Skinner. He's
yes,
the best
but
goalie of all time.
You didn't say compared to Stuart Skinner. You just said he was great. He was awesome.
Okay, well, obviously I'm talking about in the context of what the Oilers have in their garbage heap of a goaltending department.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now that's institutional surrender. Is wheeling out those goaltenders.
That's a great point, Grady. That's a great point.
Technically, there are junior goalies with better technique than Calvin Pickard. But the guy is a battler.
Yeah.
And they just needed the type of goaltending that isn't going to cost them games.
Yeah.
Right now, I think they stick with Pickard because he's just that much better than Skinner. But the bar is still so low.
Keep an eye on this Olivier Rodrigue kid. Second round pick.
Way down
from
the
Edmonton.
depth chart.
Yeah. I would go to him. Like, he's got to be better than what they have.
I thought you were just saying Pickard was awesome.
Yeah, compared to Stuart Skinner, the conversation in Edmonton is Stuart Skinner or Calvin Pickard, and there are legitimately people in Edmonton and Gazdick throwing out. Yeah, you gotta get Skinner back in there. It's his net. Okay, sure. Okay, bud. No. Yeah, watch for this Rodrigue kid. He's the Oilers' only hope at having competent goaltending.
Where's Jack Campbell?
Yeah, I mean, that's a buyout. That's got to be a buyout this offseason. Again, another conversation I had with Bagged Milk yesterday was, do they buy him out? Do they trade that contract away? It's going to be a buyout. They have to buy him out this offseason. But anyways, that was fun.
I can't believe we got to a point where I told you to, where you were citing. No. We got to a point where you were about to cite expected goals, and I came at you and said, use your eyes.
Nobody was impressed enough that I was able to find where to find expected goals.
Who would have thought?
Let's get to Bet365 and then our DFO parlay.
Let's do DFO first. Can we do DFO first?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's get to our thanks, Grady. Let's get to our daily face-off playoff parlay challenge picks. I made these picks. I did some good picks yesterday too, and I'm hoping to do it again today. You can play at games.dailyfaceoff.com. Pull up my picks, Grady. These are my picks for today. So the first game that we've got is the Panthers versus Bruins. I picked Florida to win that game, over 5.5 total goals. Matthew Tkachuk to score a goal. David Pastrnak to be held off the score sheet. He's not going to score a goal, is what I should say. And then the other game, Stars Avs. I've got Dallas winning. Ghilardi moving on to the Western Conference Final.
Ghilardi versus Aquilini.
Over 6.5 total goals. And then Wyatt Johnson to score a goal and Nathan McKinnon also to score a goal. Those are all my picks. You can go make your picks over at games.dailyfaceoff.com all playoffs long. And folks, we are keeping it simple. We don't have a show tomorrow. So you know that my pick when we're talking about the Bet365 bet of the day, you know my pick is to hammer the underdog Canucks once again like we did last night, this time at plus 165 odds over at Bet365.
Juicy odds.
Brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the sport, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code VANBONUS when you sign up for an account. Hammer it, Canucks, to close out the series tomorrow. I don't want to be talking about another game that hasn't happened yet on Monday. I want to be talking about a Dallas Stars preview. That's what I want to be talking about on Monday, Harm.
Let's go. Let's see.
We'll see. Hockey Night in Canada tomorrow, folks, 5 p.m. start. It's going to be good. We'll have you covered post-game on Rink-Wide Vancouver. Make sure you go check it out. Jeff Patterson is flying to Nashville. I don't know about as we
Nashville.
speak. I think he's flying tomorrow. Oh, Edmonton. No, that would have been something. We just send him to Nashville. No, he's flying to Edmonton. I think he's flying tomorrow. We just did this. I was just talking to him about this. But anyways, Jeff is going to be in Edmonton giving you all the coverage. So check out CanucksArmy.com and make sure you also check out Rink-Wide Vancouver. Fun episode, bud. Fun episode heading into the weekend. For my co-host, Harman Dial, and our technical producer, Grady Sass. My name is Dave Woodrelli. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation with Harman and Quads, brought to you by the Toyota BZ4X. The BZ4X's fresh look is just an added bonus to its range since you can drive up to 406 kilometers on a single charge. That's enough to get you from Kitsilano to Whistler or Kamloops to Kelowna and back and still be home in time for the game. Now that's what we'd call electric. The best part, by choosing electric, you can get up to $11,000 in rebates and incentives. The BZ4X are in stock and selling quickly, so make sure to visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer to get your hands on one. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.